Hello everyone. Thank you for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. Dieu Han woke up early, just as the light outside had begun to peek over the distant hills. Inside the simple bamboo and thatched hut, she quietly turned and glanced at her child lying peacefully in the small crib set in the corner. The crib was made from a few plain bamboo poles, placed against loosely woven bamboo walls, with some parts not yet fully covered. It had rained the night before. She had to use her jacket to cover a leaking corner, afraid the baby would catch a cold. Now the mosquito net was still damp, and drops of water remained. She knew clearly that if they stayed in this old shack, her child would fall ill soon. That thought made her decisively get up, quietly carrying the baby outside. In front of the house, she placed the baby in a makeshift covered crib, then returned to clear a patch of ground. Without hesitation, Dieu Han put on her worn gloves, grabbed a knife, and headed to the edge of the garden to cut bamboo. She carefully selected each pole, carried them back, shortened and sharpened them to make support posts. Even alone, she completed each task step by step, digging holes, placing posts, setting frames, tying braces. She also took time to weave large bamboo panels for wall coverings. Sweat dotted her forehead. Her hands were red and sore from repeatedly striking bamboo. A few spots on her hands had started to bleed, but Dieu Han didn't complain or stop. From time to time, she glanced toward the bamboo crib, where her child still slept soundly. As the house frame neared completion, figures appeared in the distance. 3 men approached, led by a tall, thin, middle-aged man with a stern gaze and a helmet in hand. Their expressions were clearly displeased. "Who are you? Who gave you permission to build a house here?" the man asked sharply. Startled, Dieu Han stood up, brushed off the dirt on her sleeves and bowed slightly. I'm a single mother. My husband beat and chased me away. I've wandered many places with my child. I saw this abandoned shack and asked to stay temporarily. I didn't mean to trespass." The man frowned, his eyes shifting to the child in the crib. His gaze softened slightly. After a moment he said, "Do you know whose land this is? I built this shack temporarily while working in the fields here." Dieu Han bowed her head, pulled a rolled-up wad of small bills from her pocket, and offered it with trembling hands. "I earned a little from labor jobs. If you would let my child and me stay, I'd like to offer this." The man looked at her for a long moment. No one spoke. The wind rustled the bamboo leaves. Finally he sighed. "I won't take your money. Stay here, just don't damage the land or the house. If you need anything, ask the nearby villagers. Don't hesitate." Dieu Han was speechless with emotion. She bowed in gratitude, watching him as he walked away. Before disappearing behind a row of banana trees, he turned and called out, "Remember to draw water from the well near the house this afternoon. I had it cleaned last week." She nodded, lips trembling. Her heart felt a little lighter. At least from today, she and her child had a place to truly call home. Around noon, she carried an old water container to the well. The sun was high. It wasn't scorching, but it was enough to make sweat bead on her forehead. The well was deep and clear. She hauled bucket after bucket, filled the container, and returned to water the vegetable patch behind the house. The small garden didn't have much, but it was enough to give her hope. After watering, she washed her hands and returned to the bamboo kitchen to light the fire. Lunch consisted of reheated rice and eggs. But as the aroma of fried eggs filled the small kitchen, Dieu Han felt unexpectedly warm. She scooped the rice, set aside a portion for her child, and quickly ate, ready to continue building the new house that afternoon. She lit the stove, stirred the leftover rice from the previous day. The fire crackled beneath the old clay pot. She cracked 2 eggs, beat them and poured them into the sizzling rice. The scent of egg and crispy rice blended in the narrow space, easing the fatigue from the early morning. She didn't have many ingredients, just a pinch of salt and a few slices of dried shallots, but each movement was firm and precise, as if preparing a small celebration for the two of them. When finished, she scooped it into bowls and carried it into the house. The baby, lying in a small plastic crib, reached out joyfully upon seeing her. Dieu Han smiled gently, sat beside her child, and spooned small bites for him. The meal passed quickly. She placed her child back into the crib, adjusted the mosquito net, then stepped outside. In the garden behind the house, the scent of ripe fruit drifted in the breeze. She walked toward the spot where the landlord was crouched under a durian tree. Seeing her, he looked surprised. "Where are you going?" "I came to help harvest durian, sir. I want to do something in return for letting us stay." He nodded without hesitation. Dieu Han carefully laid out tarps on the ground and began collecting fruit. The durians were large, spiky, and heavy, but she moved confidently. Her hands worked swiftly, each action steady and practiced. The landlord's cautious gaze eventually turned to one of approval. By midday the sun grew intense. Dieu Han wiped her face with a cloth and was about to return home when someone shouted from the alley. "Han, I think your mother is lying out on the road near the Banana Grove shortcut." Her heart clenched. Without a word, she dropped everything and ran down the narrow dirt path. In the distance she saw a thin figure lying curled on the grass verge, clothes stained with mud, arms wrapped around her stomach, eyes closed. She rushed over, dropped to her knees beside her mother. She called over and over until the older woman finally opened her eyes and whispered, "I'm fine. Just a bit tired." Dieu Han didn't reply, only slipped her arms under her mother and helped her up. She spread out a mat at home, gently laid her mother down, then fetched a clean towel and warm water. Her hands, though clumsy, were full of care as she wiped her mother's face and brow. She then rushed to the back garden, gathered lemongrass, pomelo leaves, and lime leaves, anything usable for steaming therapy. She boiled the water carefully, keeping the fire steady. The steam rose heavily, filling the kitchen with the scent of medicinal herbs. Still concerned, she rinsed some rice, chopped a bit of meat, and cooked porridge. Though only a little meat and green vegetables were left, she tried to make the best meal for her mother. As the porridge simmered, she sat beside her, occasionally wiping sweat from her brow and giving her warm water in small sips. When the porridge was ready, she scooped it into a bowl, let it cool slightly, and spoon-fed her mother. The elderly woman said nothing, only nodded faintly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The two of them sat in the small bamboo house, saying nothing, yet the silence was warmer than any word. Late afternoon, the fading sunlight shone through the bamboo, casting shadows over Dieu Han's messy hair. In the modest home, she stirred a pot of white porridge while the scent of minced pork and sautéed scallions eased the morning's tension. That morning, her mother had woken up looking more exhausted than usual. She sat silently by the door, her gaze distant, burdened by the weight of her years. Dieu Han thought it was just fatigue, so she quickly went to cook porridge for her. But while she was tending the stove, her mother had quietly gotten up and left. On the bamboo table, a note remained. "I don't want to be a burden anymore. Live for yourself and for your child. Don't suffer because of me." Trembling, Dieu Han read the note. She dropped the fresh porridge on the table and rushed outside, screaming her mother's name through the paths around the house. Her heart pounded, legs shaking from fear. Guided by instinct, she ran down the dirt road toward the hill. And there she saw her mother's frail figure collapsed on the grass verge, face pale, hair tangled and covering half her face. Dieu Han screamed, knelt down, and shook her desperately. "Mom, please wake up." Her mother barely opened her eyes, her voice a faint breeze. "I'm sorry. I didn't want you to suffer anymore because of me." Without hesitation, Dieu Han wrapped her arms around her mother's back and hoisted her onto her shoulders. Though light, her mother's weight pressed heavily on her worn body. One arm held her child, the other her mother. Her legs trembled as she trudged through the burning midday sun. The journey home was over 10 kilometers with no one around, only the sound of cicadas and her dragging footsteps. She wept, calling for help, but no one appeared in the midday heat. Luckily, a middle-aged man on a motorbike passed by. Seeing her struggling, he stopped and asked. Upon hearing the situation, he immediately helped, placing her mother on the seat and telling Dieu Han to hold her child as he drove them to the nearest clinic. At the clinic, the doctor rushed her mother into the emergency room. Dieu Han sat outside, tears falling uncontrollably. Each minute felt like an hour. The doctor finally emerged and said gently, "She's severely weakened and needs immediate fluids. Luckily, you brought her in time." She nodded, eyes red. Inside, she sat next to her mother, gripping her hand tightly, afraid that letting go would mean losing her forever. Her mother lay still, breathing softly, eyes closed. Dieu Han wiped her brow and fed her small spoons of porridge. That night, she stayed at the clinic. She spread a mat in the corner, laid her child beside her. She didn't dare sleep, frequently checking on her mother. Her hand never let go of the thin, fragile one beside her. She whispered, "Please eat a little more. If you get better, I'll work and take care of everything. Just don't leave me, Mom." In the quiet room, only the hum of the Ford machine and the soft breaths of her sleeping child remained. Dieu Han rested her head on the bedside, wishing for only one thing. Let her mother live, just live and stay with her.
Cuộc đời là một con đường dài, nơi giấc mơ hòa tan thực tại. Buồng bước chân ta bắt xây dần, bức tranh vẽ lên thử thách lớn. Những nỗi đau niềm vui tạm bợ tạo nên muôn màu sắc cuộc đời. Dù cuộc sống đôi khi thử thách, những đam mê vẫn trực trào cháy. Hãy sống với đam mê cháy bỏng, đừng chờ đợi mà hãy thực hiện những khoảnh khắc quý giá lắm, đừng để thời gian trôi xa. Giữa bộn bề cuộc sống tìm chút bình yên, trong trái tim lặng lẽ nơi còn phiền. Giọt sương mai đọng trên lá xanh, đem lại niềm vui cuộc sống vắng tanh. Ánh sáng mặt trời dọi qua mây, dù mưa giông vẫn đang đong đầy. Trong lòng chứa đầy hy vọng, ngày mai sáng tươi chờ đợi ta.